set up in the woods behind their house. It had a nice fire pit in the center and a bunch of lawn chairs beside a few tents that were already set up for us when we first got there. My cousins wanted to show me around, so we went for a walk. I didn't quite understand why they kept looking at the ground as they were walking, but looking back on it now, I know that they were making sure that there were no alligators in front of or near where we were walking. I just assumed that they were making sure that they kept solid footing. After walking for a little while, we ended up on a bank near the river where they said they used to fish sometimes. I hadn't gone fishing since my parents moved us up to the city, so I was pretty excited when I found out that they had a rod. We all decided to go fishing for a bit and ended up catching a small catfish, but other than that, we didn't really get any bites. After about an hour and a half of fishing, the sun was starting to set and my cousins wanted to cook up some food before going to bed, so we headed back to the camp. Hours passed and one by one all of my cousins started going to sleep. But for some reason I was wide awake. I couldn't sleep for the life of me. So right before my last cousin went to bed, I asked him if it would be all right if I went out fishing for a bit to relax. And I don't even think he really understood the question, but just said, "Yeah, whatever, it's all good, man." And then he said goodnight. As he went into the tent, I grabbed one of the flashlights and the fishing rod and began walking down to the river. And even though it was about a 4-minute walk, I could easily find the way since it was practically a straight shot. In no time at all I was casting the line into the water to see what sort of bites I would get at night. Now, it's important to know that I grew up in Montana and we don't have the same sort of wildlife to worry about as my cousins did in Florida. That's why when I heard a deep hissing sound, I didn't even think to look near the water. I froze up as the hissing continued and I began looking over my shoulder, expecting there to be some sort of large cat behind me. And as soon as my back was to the water, I felt an excruciatingly sharp pain coming from my right calf. Without even a second to react, I was ripped into the water by an alligator. I let out a scream as I dropped into the water and I began kicking my other leg as much as I could. Thankfully the alligator must not have gotten a good bite because as it tried to pull me further into the river, I managed to slip my leg out of its mouth. I was only about a foot away from the riverbank, so I pulled myself to it as fast as I could and hobbled away from the water in case the gator was pursuing me. And to my surprise, I could see flashlights in the distance as my cousins were running toward me as fast as they could and yelling for me not to go near the water. When they reached me, they realized that their warning came a bit too late, though it was entirely my fault for not thinking ahead. I had heard about the alligators in Florida, but I wasn't even thinking about them. I was lucky to make it out of the woods, only needing a few stitches because I will never forget what that water looked like. When my cousin shined his flashlight at the river, there were literally countless little glowing eyes just sitting on the surface of the water. I was really lucky to make it out of that river alive.